Students, teachers, family, and friends honor the late teacher they call the heart of Rhodes Middle School. Early voting for the Senate District 19 special election enters its final day. The San Antonio Spurs' new star player says he's moving on after an extremely hard week.
He's a guy who will kind of tell you what he's thinking.
And in a city where it's no longer one of the only sushi restaurants in town, Broadway's Kawa disappoints.
I want the service to get better. I want the sushi to be more consistent.
I'm Chance Storland with your Express Briefing for Friday, July 27th. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. And get each day's top news and sports headlines delivered to your inbox at expressnews.com/newsletters. Thursday evening, more than 160 students, school staff, and family members gathered at a candlelight vigil for Rhodes Middle School technology teacher William E. Davis, who died last week in an accident in Kampala, Uganda, after delivering pen pal letters from his class to students at Lady Sarah Primary School. Family members say Davis didn't have any idea of the effect he had on people's lives, especially how much he meant to his students. As of Thursday, an online petition to rename the technology building at Rhodes in his honor had reached more than 1,200 signatures. Bexar County's 10 polling sites are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. today for the final day of early voting to fill the Texas Senate seat vacated in June by convicted felon Carlos Uresti, with 8 candidates vying for the Senate District 19 seat. Uresti, a Democrat, resigned from the Senate in June about 4 months after being convicted of 11 felonies related to fraud and money laundering, eventually receiving a 12-year prison sentence. Toward the end of Thursday's practice for Team USA candidates in Las Vegas, Greg Popovich was seen sharing a joke with new Spurs star player DeRozan in an interaction that, while brief, left the 4-time All-Star guard eager for more. The knowledge he'll soon be playing for the Spurs, or as he called them, an A1 organization, under the tutelage of one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, has helped the 28-year-old get over the sting of having his life turned upside down after being traded from the Toronto Raptors. DeRozan says while the time since the trade has been a rough week, he calls his new team in Alamo City the second chapter of his basketball career, noting that he's now moving on and accepting everything that comes forward. San Antonio Express News columnist Mike Finger says the addition of DeRozan to the roster means Spurs fans likely now have a star who will let people know what he is thinking, even if it makes himself look vulnerable.
I mean, he's won the Magic Johnson Award for being the best guy in the league to deal with the media. And like I wrote in the column, being great with the media is not a requirement to be a great NBA player. But I think it does provide kind of a window into a guy's personality. And, you know, for years, since 2011 when Kawhi Leonard was drafted, you know, he was an inscrutable figure. He was a guy who clearly was uncomfortable talking to the media, and that's fine. A lot of people don't like to speak about themselves. And from what I've heard about DeRozan, he's a guy who really wants to create relationships with people. He wants to connect with people. He's spoken very candidly about his bouts with depression and anxiety and things like that. And I think it's refreshing in a way to be around a guy who's more open about what he's going through.
Hear more of Mike Finger's thoughts on DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard, and Greg Popovich on today's episode of the Spurs Insider Podcast, available for free download at expressnews.com/podcasts. And in a city where it's no longer one of the only sushi restaurants in town, Broadway's Kawa disappoints.
Hi, I'm Mike Sutter, the restaurant critic for the Express News, here to talk to you about this week's review of Kawa, the sushi place down on Broadway that's been open since 1992. But given the service experiences that I had each of the times I went, you would think that they had just opened last week. There was some kind of comical problem every single time I went. But we'll move past that a little bit now to talk about the sushi, which frankly to me didn't hit its stride until I got to the more elaborate chirashi bowls with cuts of raw fish. The sushi had problems, poorly constructed rolls, some preternaturally reddish orange tuna that looked a little bit funny next to the beautiful cuts that arrived in the raw fish bowls. They did do some surprising things from the grill, especially a hamachi collar, which is just this cut of fish from the yellowtail that they grilled perfectly. It was like having a nice outdoor grilling experience right there in a sushi restaurant. Koi Kawa also did a pretty decent job with some other cooked things, like a decent bowl of ramen soup. But it kind of went back the other way with a salmon teriyaki that kind of was grilled so hard it's almost like the sauce bounced off it like it had a waterproof coating. And I didn't like the gummy udon noodle soup. So we have kind of a mixed bag of things going on over at Koi Kawa. I want the service to get better, I want the sushi to be more consistent, but I also want to get more of some of those beautiful dishes that I had from the grill. So for the rest of the review, please go to expressnews.com.
And that's your daily San Antonio Express News briefing for Friday, July 27th. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. I'm Chance Dorland.